It was 1984. The world was deep in the Cold War.
They could also deliver an atomic bomb to Washington or New York.
The world is full of peril as well as promise.
Nations were stockpiling nuclear weapons. Tensions ran high between the US and the Soviet Union. At the same time, an entirely different revolution was taking place, one of technology and culture. MTV was blasting music videos 24/7. The first Apple Macintosh was about to change computing forever. Cities pulsed with neon lights. Airplanes crisscrossed the skies, and the modern world moved at breakneck speed. Yet in the vast, sun-scorched deserts of Western Australia, none of this mattered. In the heart of the Gibson Desert, 9 people were utterly unaware of the Cold War. They had never seen a television, never heard a radio, and couldn't even begin to imagine the existence of computers. Even the most basic elements of modern life, electricity, clothes, metal tools, were completely foreign to them. They were the Pintupi Nine, the last known group of Indigenous Australians to live in complete isolation, untouched by the modern world. For tens of thousands of years, the ancestors of the Pintupi Nine lived as hunter-gatherers, moving across the desert in search of water and food.
Australian Aborigines today live their unspoiled tribal life only in the most remote areas of Australia.
Theirs was a world shaped by the land, the shifting dunes, the hidden waterholes, and the tracks of animals. This land, an endless stretch of red sand, whispering grass, and towering rock formations, was both their home and their teacher. Every contour of the desert held a story, passed down through generations. Every hidden water source, every seasonal shift, every subtle change in the wind's direction was etched into their minds. They followed the rhythms of the earth, moving between different water holes that could be 25 miles apart. When water was scarce, they turned to their deep knowledge of survival. Goannas, large lizards, became an essential food source, their blood providing crucial hydration when no water could be found. At night, they slept under the stars, wrapped in nothing but the warmth of their own bodies and the companionship of their family. Their entire world was built on oral tradition, ancient knowledge, and a deep spiritual connection to the land. But suddenly, their world was shrinking. For centuries, the Pintupi people had thrived in the Western Desert, largely undisturbed, but that began to change with the arrival of European settlers in Australia.
And it is important that these last remaining evidences of an Australian Stone Age culture should be preserved before the ravages of man and time finally destroy them.
In the 1950s, the British government began conducting missile tests in the region, launching weapons over the vast, uninhabited landscape. But the land wasn't empty. The Pintupi people lived there, unseen, beyond the reach of government authorities. To clear the area for these military operations, the Australian government forcibly relocated Indigenous groups to settlements, tearing families apart and erasing centuries of tradition in the process. Most of the Pintupi had been rounded up and taken to these settlements, but the Pintupi Nine, they were completely overlooked. For decades, they remained hidden in the desert, unaware that their people had been forced to leave. Alone and isolated, they remained completely ignorant of the seismic changes happening just beyond the horizon. Until one day, the modern world found them. They had seen strange things before: wreckage from crashed planes, bits of rope, and abandoned objects, but they had no words to describe them. To them, these things were like spirits, belonging to a realm beyond their understanding. And then one day, they saw something even more unsettling. Footprints. Fresh human footprints. The scent of smoke carried on the wind. The sign of something, someone nearby. The father of the Pintupi Nine talked about strange creatures covered in wool, what they would later understand to be sheep.
And the sounds of unknown creatures. Might they be dangerous?
He would also talk about strange people who were completely unlike them, but he would always refuse to let them see. Now, standing before them was proof that these stories were real. The moment that would change their lives forever happened at a borehole, a metal contraption pumping water from the ground. Standing beside it was a man, a Pintupi man, but he was different. He was clothed, and he was using a machine to pump water from the ground. The eldest of the 9 approached the men and then unintentionally coughed. The men at the borehole thought that the Pintupi Nine were ancestral spirits. Startled, they shot their gun into the air. They had no concept of a gun, no understanding of what had happened, but they knew fear. They ran. For 3 days they hid in the desert. Their world shattered. But the modern world would not let them go. A search party was formed. They tracked footprints, followed clues, and one by one, the 9 was found. Frightened, confused, taken into a world they never knew existed. Their first car ride was terrifying. Everything around them moved too quickly. It was dizzying, disorienting. Their first sight of a white man, his pale skin so different from their own, was a shock. Their first taste of sugar was a revelation, a sweetness unlike anything they had ever known. Slowly, they began to understand. Life as they knew it was over. The eldest and his brothers embraced their new reality and became world-renowned artists, sharing their stories through traditional dot painting. Others struggled. One brother, unable to cope with the pressures of modern life, vanished, returning to the wilderness, back to the land he understood. But even those who stayed in the new world never truly left their old one behind. The story of the Pintupi Nine isn't just about isolation, it's about resilience. Unlike many indigenous groups who were violently displaced, the 9 were reunited with their people. But modern life brought new challenges. Still, they remained connected to their past. They continued to tell stories, to paint, to teach the younger generation about the ways of the old world. They never lost their knowledge of the land, their understanding of survival, or their deep spiritual connection to the desert. Because for them, the land wasn't just where they lived, it was who they were. And no matter how much the modern world changed them, that truth would never fade.